Hey there, Trailblazers! So, today I've got some seriously exciting news to share about brand new characters and content heading to Honkai Star Rail real soon. We're diving into detailed early full kit info for both NIHILUX and the upcoming Finality form of the Trailblazer, plus some pretty shocking details about potential pay-to-win buffs coming for several older characters. Before we begin though, everything discussed here is based on unofficial sources, so none of this is final and things can still change before these updates actually release. With that out of the way, let's get into it. First, let's talk about NIHILUX, who appears to be one of the upcoming characters associated with the Elation Path. Her leaked kit revolves around supporting another character while generating resources and triggering additional attacks. Starting with her basic attack, NIHILUX deals quantum damage to one designated enemy and gains wish points. Her skill grants a designated ally, other than herself, an effect called Linkshare. Linkshare can stack up to a certain number of times. When NIHILUX applies it, she immediately launches an additional attack and gains more wish points. Each Linkshare stack increases the elation damage dealt by the character holding it. However, Linkshare only applies to the most recent target of NIHILUX's skill, meaning you'll need to carefully choose which ally you want to empower. Whenever that character uses an ability, they gain additional Linkshare stacks. Once the required number is reached, NIHILUX launches another additional attack. Her additional attack applies a state to all enemies that increases the elation damage they take for several turns. She then deals quantum elation damage to all enemies while gaining punchline points and more wish points. So the basic gameplay loop is pretty straightforward. NIHILUX empowers one ally, that character builds Linkshare stacks by taking actions, and NIHILUX repeatedly triggers additional attacks while increasing the team's elation damage. Her ultimate grants punchline points and increases the elation of all allies for several turns. She also has an enhanced ultimate that consumes wish points, grants additional punchline points, and deals quantum elation damage to all enemies before following up with multiple quantum damage hits against one random enemy. Finally, her elation skill deals quantum damage to all enemies, followed by additional true damage based on the tally maintained by her talent. This true damage is distributed evenly across all enemies, while NIHILUX gains additional wish points. Overall, NIHILUX looks like a support and sub-DPS designed specifically for elation teams, with her gameplay focused on Linkshare, wish points, punchline points, and additional attacks. The exact numbers are still unknown, but if these mechanics remain intact, NIHILUX could become an important part of the elation archetype. Now let's move on to the upcoming Finality form of the Trailblazer. This version of the Trailblazer is apparently imaginary and seems focused on supporting other Finality characters through a special state called Burst Mode. Before getting into Trailblazer's individual abilities, let's first explain how the new Finality path appears to work. The biggest new mechanic is the Finality gauge, which is a shared resource for the entire team. It ranges from 0 to 200, and when the gauge reaches 100 or higher, the team can activate Burst Mode. The Finality gauge is specifically generated by Finality characters, meaning teams built around this new path will need Finality units to charge the gauge and maintain their special state. Finality characters also appear to have their own unique interaction with the action bar. When there's a Finality character on the team, Finality appears on the action bar, and its position is affected by the speed of the Finality characters in the team. This means speed is likely going to play an important role in determining how quickly Finality teams can access their turns and their Burst Mode mechanics. Once the Finality gauge reaches 100 or higher, Burst Mode can be activated. This is essentially the main power state of the Finality path, giving Finality characters and their supports access to enhanced effects and additional mechanics. And this is where Finality Trailblazer comes in. Their kit is designed around helping the team build and take advantage of the Finality gauge, while providing powerful buffs and additional actions during Burst Mode. With that basic finality system explained, let's take a look at Trailblazer's individual abilities. Starting with the basic attack, Finality Trailblazer deals imaginary damage to one enemy based on their attack. The enhanced basic attack instead deals imaginary damage to all enemies, followed by additional imaginary damage against a random enemy through a bounce effect. The skill grants one designated ally an effect called Finality Invite. This increases the target's attack and break effect, while also increasing their burst damage during burst mode. Just like NIHILUX's Linkshare, Finality Invite only applies to the most recent target of the skill, so you'll need to choose your main Finality damage dealer carefully. The ultimate increases the speed of all allies for several turns and increases the Finality gauge by 100. The Finality gauge appears to be one of the most important mechanics in this kit. When Finality Trailblazer enters burst mode, all Finality characters have their action advanced by 100%, essentially allowing them to immediately take their turns. During burst mode, Trailblazer also reduces the defense of all enemies, increases the toughness reduction they receive, and enhances their basic attack. Finality Invite also becomes much more powerful during burst mode because its duration isn't reduced. Whenever Trailblazer uses their basic attack, skill, or ultimate, the character holding Finality Invite immediately gains an extra turn, allowing them to use their ultimate. This creates a clear gameplay loop. Activate burst mode, advance your Finality characters, give one of them additional turns, and use Trailblazer's abilities to continuously enable them. Then we have the Finality or leader talent. While Trailblazer is the leader, using their basic attack or skill increases the Finality gauge, while their speed is also increased during burst mode. More importantly, whenever allies deal damage during burst mode, Trailblazer deals an additional instance of true damage based on a percentage of the original damage. So Finality Trailblazer isn't simply providing buffs from the sidelines. They're also dealing additional damage based on what the rest of the team does. Overall, Finality Trailblazer looks heavily focused on maintaining burst mode while supporting Finality characters through action advancement, speed, defense reduction, toughness reduction, additional turns, and damage amplification. Of course, this is still an extremely early version of the kit, so these mechanics and numbers could change significantly. Now, let's move on to something potentially even more controversial: new equipment for older characters. According to the current leaks, the first batch is apparently being developed for Acheron, Dan Hung-il, and Jing Yuan. These upgrades could reportedly give them entirely new attacks and even new animations, meaning they may be much more than simple stat buffs. Starting with Acheron, once per turn, when an enemy with Crimson Knot is attacked, Acheron launches a follow-up attack against all enemies. This attack deals lightning damage through 4 successive slashes. Each time it occurs, a separate counter increases by 1. Once that counter reaches 3, Acheron immediately gains access to an additional ultimate while preserving her previous Slashed Dream progress. Considering how important Slashed Dream is to Acheron's gameplay, this could dramatically increase her damage output. Next is Dan Hung-il. His leaked equipment might be the most ridiculous of the 3. At the start of battle, Dan Hung-il reportedly receives a temporary buff that makes his damage dealt become 200% of the original damage, effectively doubling his damage. When he consumes enough skill points through his enhanced basic attacks, he also automatically launches an additional attack against all enemies. On top of that, he gains a 4th level to his enhanced basic attack, which consumes 4 skill points. Considering how skill point hungry Dan Hung-il already is, this could create a completely different playstyle centered around maximizing skill point consumption. And if that 200% damage effect remains anywhere close to its current leaked state, Dan Hung-il could receive an absolutely massive boost. Finally, we have Jing Yuan. His equipment effect is considerably simpler. When Lightning Lord's accumulated attack count reaches 10 or more, its next action becomes enhanced, increasing its number of hits from 10 to 16. 6 additional Lightning Lord hits could still represent a significant increase in damage, especially when combined with Jing Yuan's other buffs and future supports. What's particularly interesting is that these upgrades could potentially function as a way of modernizing older characters. Instead of releasing completely new versions of Acheron, Dan Hengil, and Jing Yuan, Hoyoverse could give their existing versions additional mechanics, attacks, and animations through this new system. However, this is also where the potential pay-to-win concerns come in. Some leaked information suggests that one equipment upgrade could potentially be given for free, while additional upgrades may require payment. But the exact acquisition method and monetization details are still unconfirmed, so we shouldn't assume this system will launch exactly as currently leaked. Everything we've discussed today is still subject to change, especially since these mechanics are apparently in active development. But if these leaks end up being even remotely accurate, we could be looking at some pretty major changes to Honkai Star Rail. So, what do you guys think about all of this? Are you excited for NIHILUX and FINALITY Trailblazer, or are you more interested in these potential upgrades for the older characters? And most importantly, what do you think about the possibility of paid equipment giving older characters massive new abilities? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But anyways, that pretty much covers all of the new info that I have for this video. So if you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with all the latest Honkai Star Rail leaks, news, and updates. That's it for now though, so I'll see you guys in the next video.